Hello, and a very warm welcome to all guests for joining us today. My name is David Kelly, and I'm the Executive Director here at the British Chamber of Commerce in Singapore. This is a collaborative event with Opus by Prudential, and it sits under the theme of the longevity agenda. Thank you so much to Prudential Singapore for your continued support of the Chamber, and we are really delighted to bring you this important session to our community more broadly. Making a positive contribution to the community is something many of us would love to do. When it comes to legacy giving in Singapore, there remains a disparity between awareness and action. And this session will seek to explore philanthropy's role in wealth planning and preservation and going forward as well. We'll be covering how to use this as a vehicle to preserve your family's legacy, values and wealth, how giving back to society can make a positive impact on society, your family and tax relief and rebates, trends in Singapore's philanthropy ecosystem and legacy giving as the next frontier. Community Foundation of Singapore's vision will also be discussed in terms of creating an impact for Singapore and how the Donor Advised Fund, or DAF, is a modern tool used to realise giving goals now and in the future, and an update on It's Raining Raincoats, covering the legacy giving and sustainable support for favourite causes as well. So a really great session ahead of us. So without further ado, I'd just like to introduce our absolutely amazing speakers today. Firstly, a warm welcome to our moderator, Angeline Alexander, who is the head of High Net Worth and Affluent Segments and Pulse at Prudential Assurance Company in Singapore. Angeline, a really warm welcome to you. Angeline is joined by both Catherine Lowe, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Community Foundation of Singapore, and Dipa Swamniathan, founder of It's Raining Raincoats. A very warm welcome also to you both. So Angeline, I'm very happy to hand over. I can't wait for this session, a really, really important segment as well. And once again, a very warm welcome and over to you.
Thank you so much, David, and a very good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this discussion on legacy giving. As David mentioned, I'm really honored to bring you this session, which is proudly brought to you by Opus by Prudential in partnership with BritCham. So thank you, BritCham, for giving us this opportunity. Now, today we're going to explore the role of philanthropy and how it could play a part in the planning and preservation of your wealth. And I'm so excited that we've got two inspiring panelists today who will share their stories on giving back and how legacy giving is the next frontier. So Catherine Lowe is from the Community Foundation of Singapore. Now, CFS is a charity formed in 2008 to encourage and enable philanthropy in Singapore. Over the past 10 years, Catherine has led CFS on a strategic growth path by increasing the number of donor funds and volume of donations, as well as raising social impact through effective grant making. Now, we also have Dipa Swamniathan, and she's the founder of It's Raining Raincoats. Very timely because it's a bit of a rainy day today, Dipa. Now, this is an organization created in 2015 to support migrant workers and champion their causes. Now, I'm sure you're all very keen to hear about how they can help you with philanthropy in your space. But before we do that, we'd just like to get a read of our audience today, get a sense of where you are when it comes to this topic of legacy giving. So let's run a poll, and I hope that everyone can participate in this. So poll question number 1, what comes to mind when you hear legacy gift? So we've got 3 choices there, and we'll just give you a few minutes to give us a sense of what you're thinking about when you think about legacy giving. Okay. I'm not sure. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here are the results. So, right, Catherine and Dipa, a bit of a read of the audience today. It seems that, we've got quite a number of, a large percentage of our audience here today obviously understand a bit about legacy gifting, right? And of course, you know, someone to take action and someone to find out more. So which is perfect, isn't it? So that's just the perfect audience for us. So we don't want to waste anyone's any more time. Let's just get started, shall we? So now in the past 2 years, Catherine and Dipa, you know, I think there is that sense, obviously with, you know, the pandemic, that there is a renewed interest and awareness, right, in within the community around helping the less privileged and the disadvantaged. So I'd like to get a point of view from both of you. Do you feel the same way? And what have been some of your observations around people's attitudes towards giving back? Shall we start with Catherine?
Thank you, Angeline, and thank you very much to BritCham and also to Prudential for giving me the opportunity to share with everyone here today. Yes, Angeline, we do see an outpouring of generosity last year and earlier this year as well, you know, as the impact of COVID-19, you know, hit our country. And we have seen a lot of people wanting to give back. They want to know how. And in general, we do get the sense that donors are more interested to find out about how their money is going to be used, not just, you know, blindly giving and just, you know, trusting that all the money that they've given will be well spent. They want to know how, they want to know why. They are more discerning, I would say. And I must say also that, you know, social media has also made it more obvious as to where there are gaps in society and how, you know, charities and groups, you know, are actually helping. And yeah, with more visibility, I do get the sense that the people are encouraged to join in.
Thanks, Catherine. What about yourself, Dipa? You know, as a founder of a charity, what has been your observation?
Well, you know, firstly, thank you as well from me for having me on this panel. Very honored to be here and also with in Catherine's esteemed company. So, yeah, I think I would largely agree with what Catherine has said. That has been our experience too. So, you know, It's Raining Raincoats is not yet a charity. We started as a ground up movement about 5-6 years ago. And we're in the process of getting registered as a charity. We've just gotten registered as a company limited by guarantee. All big steps for us because, you know, with being a ground up movement was very nimble for us to just dream, imagine, and just do. And I hope we can continue to do that as a charity as well. But on the point of, you know, have we seen an outpouring of support? You know, the answer is a very clear yes. So we have zero overheads at It's Raining Raincoats. So, you know, we're fully sort of volunteer-led, volunteer-driven. We have no expenses for ourselves. Even our own expenses are not reimbursed. You know, we have nothing for, you know, we have no allocation for ourselves for space or marketing or any of that sort. So I suppose that gives people, you know, a little more, you know, their faith in knowing where their money goes, I suppose, is a little bit stronger when it comes to us because it's very clear that every dollar donated to us will go to the migrant workers. But we've not done, you know, I always feel there is some amount of donor fatigue out there. So we don't really go out and ask for money unless, you know, there is an actual burning platform. But during the course of 2020, it's maybe tapered off a little bit now, but definitely last year, we saw a huge outpouring of support in terms of people wanting to come forward. And I think the reason for that largely was because it was just last year that, you know, the public in general were kind of awakened to the plight of migrant workers, and migrant workers were caught in the eye of the COVID storm last year. So a lot of what we knew was common knowledge to us in terms of the way the workers live, the conditions under which they live, the amount they're paid, you know, the cramped conditions in dormitories, the way they're transported. That was all common knowledge to us, but I don't think people knew about that. So I think when that became sort of public information, then it just elicited a lot of support, which was very heartening for us to see.
Well, thanks for that, yeah, Dipa. I think you're absolutely spot on that front because of that. Obviously, there's the media awareness, as Catherine pointed out as well. So, Catherine, Tell us a bit more about Community Foundation of Singapore, and what is the organization's role in legacy giving?
Welcome, Community Foundation of Singapore, or CFS for short, is the only community foundation here in the country. And while the concept of a community foundation is well established in the US and in Europe, the idea of a CF in Singapore is new. We were established about 13 years ago. So our role is really to encourage and promote and enable philanthropy in Singapore. A little bit about history, right? I mean, back in the 2000s, lots of wealth was generated in Singapore, real estate, finance. The country was actually doing very well. And if you look at the so-called family foundations that were established in Singapore, you have those that were established in the 70s, the 80s, but we have not heard of many new philanthropists stepping up in the 90s or the early 2000s. And the question was why, right? And well, they did a study back then, and basically the feedback was that it's becoming very onerous to set up your own family foundation because of all the the legal, administrative hassles that one has to go through. And also, people were too busy making money and they have no time to really like dedicate, time and resources, to just focus on a family foundation or a corporate foundation. And so, we came up with this idea, right? Hey, then why not, set up a community foundation? And, we provide the back-end administrative legal services to help people who want to do good in a more strategic, longer-term manner to do so. And also, to be able to answer the donors, request to have more clarity of where their money is actually going to. So we have donors who are interested in particular causes, but they do not know which charities that they can support or which are the good programs, and we do the matching. So that's why we were set up to encourage more people to do good in a more longer term strategic manner. And I must say that to date we have close to 170 funds established. We call them donor advice funds. And through all these donors, we have raised about $200 million, and over 125, 130 has been given out, to the sector. So I would say, it is really, exciting to be working in a community foundation and being the very first one in the country at that. And the product, or the service that we offer to our donors is what we call a donor advice fund. So it is almost like a shortcut to setting up your own family foundation. So you have a named fund. You can call it Angeline Alexander Family Fund, for example, or the Alexander Family Foundation. And then you put your money into the fund, and the money would may enjoy tax deduction at the point in time of the donation. So if you donate money this year, you get your tax deduction this year, and you can actually take your time to disperse out the grants. So, you might want to learn more about the sector, you might want to learn more about the charities that are operating in the sector, or you might want to understand more about the programs that the charities are running, to support your favorite causes. And here in the Community Foundation, we do have philanthropy consultants who would be able to provide the advice and the guidance. And because we work with so many donors, and we work with over 400 charities, we do have a so-called a bird's eye view, and we do have a wide network, and we will be able to see where are the gaps, where are the needs, where areas where there are excess resources, and where areas where there is a need for funding. So we could actually advise our donors accordingly. So I would say it is actually a very flexible tool for those who are interested in financial planning, for doing good.
Wow, thank you. I mean, it's good to know, and congratulations on being the first, community foundation in Singapore. And, right at a time when obviously there's a lot of interest, right? And increased awareness as well. And people are wondering, if they want to actually give back, where can they go to? Because as you pointed out, I think some individuals might have a charity, right, that they are really, passionate about, or cause that they're really passionate about. But at the same time, you have 400 charities that you've got oversight of. And so it could also be a case where someone may not exactly know where they want to support, and then therefore can come to your organization. Would that be a right summary, Catherine?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. In fact, there are like 2,000 charities in Singapore. So, many charities out there, supporting a variety of causes, in a small country.
Yeah, that sounds great. So could you share with us maybe an example of a family or an individual, obviously anonymously, that that CFS has helped out, and that might just give a bit of that flavor around some of the work that you do in terms of helping some of these charities?
Well, I think CFS, we take a very donor-centric approach. So we start with the donor in mind, and basically when a donor comes to us and say, I'm interested in doing good, or I want to do something for society, I want to preserve my family's legacy, or I want to remember someone, in the family, usually the patriarch, the father or the granddad or the grandparents. We start off with that, we ask the donor exactly what is your motivation, right? What is the objective of you wanting to do good, and also, what are you really passionate about? So we don't, do it from the other side and say, these are all the fundraising needs and these are all the causes out there. So we start off with what the donor is interested in. And usually giving can be very personal, and there is always a very interesting backstory. Well, I can share the story of our ex-president, right, Mr. S.R. Nathan. When he stepped down as president, he established the fund with us, and the fund is still running, even though he's no longer around. But he was a poor boy, and if not for some generous soul helping him out when he was a teenager, he would never have graduated from university, and he would never have the career that he had. And when he stepped down as president, he wanted, his exact words, he wanted to help the underdogs. He wanted to help those teenagers who would drop out of school if not for some financial support. And that was, what he was, right? A teenager that would drop out of school if he didn't get, some support, back in his days. So he wanted to do that. And he asked us to find, schools or institutions where there is, the highest pool of such students. And we had to look for that. And over time, we found those students, and he has been supporting these, the institution. And, as they move on, right, they move on from ITE to poly to universities, his giving expanded, from one, the school or institution to, almost all the polytechnics now, and even to some of the universities. And even though he's no longer around, he has family members and close friends, who, helped him to, preserve his legacy and make sure that his wishes, are, adhered to, right? And now we have actually moved on to, some quite innovative concepts, I would say, supporting adult learners who want to have a second career and they go back, for a degree. So, we actually have some awards for that as well. So that is in the area of education. We've got families, who was tasked by the, by their parents, it's like, well, when I'm no longer around, take my money and I want to do good. And I want it to be in these very specific areas. And we've had a family, the father, the father was a doctor, and he wanted, a specific kind of medical research. So, when the family came to us, we actually have to look around, which university or which hospital, looks into that. And some, donors have a very specific objectives. I really want to provide, palliative care training to nurses. It's like, okay, we're going to find it for you. Or some could be general, it's like, yeah, I just like to, go do support in medical, just, tell me, where are the needs, right? So, and we have also had donors, who are interested in music, classical music. We have donors who actually started an award, giving an award to a musician every year. She even organizes her own auditions, with the help of the professionals that she knows in the industry. So we have got the donors who support Chinese culture, because his granddad was the editor of the Chinese paper, back in the 50s and the 60s, and he wanted to preserve, the love of the Chinese culture, promotion of Chinese literature. So really, it is really about whatever that you are interested in, right? Like Dipa, she's interested in the social cause, in supporting migrant workers, and she found a way. And then, basically for us, we try to help, our donors by finding a way where they could actually express their passion, and helping them to direct their funding to, where there is a real need.
Wow, thank you, Catherine. I mean, I think that really sort of really lifts it and brings it to life, isn't it? And really like the approach that CFS has taken, which is obviously very donor-centric. And then that just unearths all these opportunities, like you said, right? That's really allowing the donor to make an impact that's close to their heart. So thanks for sharing that, Catherine. And to everyone on the at the session here today, please feel free to drop questions into the Zoom chat. We will periodically look at those questions, but we will also have time at the end of the session for Q&A. So, but if there's something that either Catherine or Dipa has mentioned which triggers a burning question, please drop it into the chat, and we will get to it and get them to answer it as well. So that's a bit of a public service announcement before we get back right into it again. So Dipa, now over to you. It's Raining Raincoats. You have to tell us how that name came about. I think I would be truly not doing my job as a moderator if I didn't ask you about that. But so do tell us that story, as well as what you do for the not the charity yet, but what you do for the movement, as well as your inspiration behind it.
Yeah, if only I had $1 for every time I'd been asked that question, I could have made I could have started a little fund with the community foundation myself. But, I guess the whole origin of the movement, it was all quite sort of organic and accidental. I didn't wake up one morning, roll off the bed and announce to the world that I'm going to start a movement today, right? It didn't quite happen in that way. I just happened to be driving back, and if you've heard this story before, my apologies, because I've told it many times, but the whole genesis of it was on a rainy day, much like today, although it was a thunderstorm, and I happened to be driving into my road around midday, and I saw these two migrant workers drenched wet because they were doing road cleaning, and they were just caught by this rain, and they had nowhere to go. It was a road with not very many houses, and so they were just standing there looking very helpless and hopeless, and I drove past them feeling really sorry for them, but something made me stop, and then I reversed my car. I insisted they get in because I just lived around the corner, and I took them home. They sat in my front porch. We gave them something hot to drink and eat. I gave them some of my husband's old, shirts to change into. And as they left, I also gave them my number. I said, I'm a lawyer in Singapore. That's my day job, by the way. And I said, if you need any help, call me. I can speak Tamil. So, one of them was from India, one was from Bangladesh. So, I was able to communicate with them. And when you speak the local language, it always breaks down barriers. So they took my number and off they went. And a few months later, I had a call from the police one Sunday morning while I was grocery shopping at NTUC to say that, one of those two workers, his name is Murugan, had tried to commit suicide the night before. And at that time, attempted suicide was a crime in Singapore. And so, not only had he failed to commit suicide, he had subsequently been arrested. And, the only number he had in his wallet was mine, that little scrap of paper I'd given him about 3 months ago. And would I be willing to go to the police station and post bail for him of $2,000? So obviously, when I heard that, in this whole country, the only person he knew who he could call on was me, obviously, I felt, I had to go. There was no question about it. So I just dropped my grocery shopping, took a taxi to the Jurong Police Division, by which time they moved him to the mental hospital. So I had to go to the mental hospital to sign the bail documents. But they allowed me to meet him. And I said, what happened? What did you do? And he had tried to hang himself the night before. And he said he hadn't been paid his wages for 6 months and he didn't know what else to do. He had loan sharks hounding him back home. So he decided he would just end it all. So I said, well, I'm here now. I'm gonna take care of it. Don't do anything foolish. So I came out, and at this point, there were policemen guarding this entire ward because he's a criminal. So I spoke to those young policemen, and I said, look, this guy is a victim here. He's not a criminal. The guy you need to be going after is his employer who hasn't paid him his wages. So, they couldn't quite understand what I was saying. So I came back and I sent off an email. I Googled the police commissioner's email address and sent him an email telling him exactly this. And I kept sending that email every day, saying that this guy is really a victim and so on. And a week later, I had somebody call me from the Jurong Police Division to say, lady, firstly, please stop emailing us daily. And secondly, we have dropped all charges against Murugan, and we've got his employer to pay him all his back wages, and he's going to be released and he's going to be a free man. So that was wonderful news. But what was even more wonderful was a few weeks after that, Murugan turns up at my doorstep again. He had remembered, where I lived. And when I saw him in the mental hospital, he had a beard and he looked like death, basically. But, here he was, clean shaven, smiling, cheerful. And he'd come to thank me, basically, which was very sweet. So this story, ended up going, I told somebody who wrote the people. I told somebody who then told somebody else, who put it on social media. It kind of went viral. The media picked it up. And then the Singapore Kindness Movement approached me and said, why don't we, Kindness Day was coming up. I think this was 2016. And they said, why don't we do something, do you have an idea what we can do for migrant workers? So I said, it's raining a lot these days. Why don't we just start a little movement where people can carry raincoats in their bags, and if they see a worker stuck in the rain, they can just pass him the raincoat. That not only gives the worker protection from rain, but it builds this little bridge of interaction between Singaporeans and migrant workers, because at that point there was still a lot of stigma about whether you could even interact with these guys. So they said, great, we'll support it. And they said, think of a name for this. It was just supposed to be a one day event on Singapore Kindness Day 2016. And I'd heard the song It's Raining Men the night before. So I went up to my office and thought, it's raining raincoats. That does it. Not knowing that this would be a tongue twister that I would have to contend with for years to come. So now it's got an acronym, IRR. And as somebody told me, Deepa, if you've got an acronym, you've arrived. So I think we've arrived, but not because of anything else. It's just because the name is such a tongue twister. But that's the story.
Thank you for that, Deepa. Thanks for sharing that backstory. And I'm sure the hashtag is raining raincoats has obviously got its own, its own life and, in terms of tags as well. So congratulations on that from a simple act of kindness, and how it's actually come to where it is now. So so I guess, I mean, Catherine's giving us a perspective, obviously, for our audience today, that, if they have that, if they feel pulled in the direction of wanting to make, a donation, or, to set up a foundation, that can be done through her sort of foundation, through CFS. Now, from your perspective, because you're giving a different aspect of philanthropy, from your perspective of giving time, right? Where do you see the pockets of opportunity for our audience to, to consider?
Yeah, so maybe it'll be good if I could just give a bit of a quick, bird's eye view into the needs of the migrant worker community, because that's probably what I'm best placed to do. So, although a lot of light was thrown into that last year in mainstream media, we on our social media pages, we constantly sort of talking about it. But here is a life of a day in the life of a migrant worker, right? So firstly, they kind of get up at around 4:30 a.m. in the morning, not because their workday starts that early, but because they have to start to queue up to use the toilet, because there's a toilet and a washroom shared by 50 to 100 workers. So for a lot of us, if we have an early morning meeting at 8 o'clock, you can still kind of get up at 6:30, roll into, have a cup of coffee, roll into the shower, do what you need to do, get up, call a taxi or get into your car at whatever time you think is right, and get off to work. For them, not so much. So they have to be at the lorry when it comes to pick them up at 6:30 or whatever. And if it's 100 guys to a toilet, they have to make sure they wake up early enough to queue up to use the toilet, because if they miss doing that and they miss that lorry, most of them live, in the boonies and woodlands or Tuas or wherever else they live. Their work sites might be in town. They can't afford to take a taxi. They don't have the money for sure, and they certainly may not even have the time to do it. So that is the start of their work day. Then they get into their lorries without seatbelts, and they get shipped out to their work sites. They're doing hard labor in the sun, sometimes in the rain. Then they get a break for lunch, and their lunch is usually, a mound of rice with a little bit of curry. And oftentimes it's left at their work site at 6 a.m. in the morning. And if it's a hot day, it's very possible it's turned rancid by the time they eat it at noon. So they eat this sometimes foul-smelling food for lunch. They get some time to rest then, an hour totally for lunch and rest. Then it's back at their hard labor again, building buildings, scaling skyscrapers. People like me who have vertigo can't even imagine what these guys do, but they do what they do. And then they wait for their lorries again at night, back onto the lorries without seatbelts, get back home around 7:30, 8, 9, 10, whenever it is. And then they have to do their laundry, they have to cook their meals, they have to clean their surroundings, do whatever they need to do, get to bed, and then it's lather, rinse, and repeat. The same routine day in and day out. And these are the guys that build the luxurious apartments we live in, the luxurious hotels we have, the beautiful, office complexes that we have. They tar the roads that we drive on in the air-conditioned comfort of our cars while they still go in their lorries. So I just feel, and I should add that most of them get paid a basic wage of $18 a day. That's not 80, that's 1/8. It's not per hour, it's per day. So that is their basic wage, and that's what they get for doing all this. They don't even have money for their dental needs. We're helping a lot of workers now. Many have never stepped into a dentist's office. They don't have, they don't, because they're insured for certain things, but certain things are kind of between them and their employer. And very often the employer either doesn't step up to do what he's supposed to do, or the worker is too scared. And you see, all of this is premised by the fact that they're super worried about their work permits being cancelled if they are seen to be presenting any trouble or any protest. So they just oftentimes silently suffer through whatever is given to them, because their worst nightmare is if their work permit is cancelled and they're shipped back, because they often have huge loans outstanding, and with loans come very threatening loan sharks, and that is a question of life or death for them at that point. And then of course there's the issue of injuries and death. Many die every year, workplace injuries and so on, and many more, hundreds are injured. Arms get sewn off, fingers get chopped, forklifts, gore legs, all kinds of things, right? So it's a pretty bleak scenario overall, and we feel that this group of men, at the very least, is deserving of our compassion. And that's why we do what we do. We do a number of things during the year, and, including, now for Deepavali, we're doing a massive drive-by, pizza distribution and samosa distribution. And at Christmas every year, we have an initiative that, sort of to paraphrase Martin Luther King, it's called We Have a Dream. And our dream is to give every single migrant worker in Singapore a Christmas present. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. It can be something as small as a tiger balm that is gift wrapped. But the idea is, we want to invite them into the festive spirit. And the idea, more importantly, is to build bridges of engagement between residents of Singapore and our migrant workers. And these initiatives are very popular, very successful, because, young children get to write cards, people get to throw all their creativity and individuality into how they wrap these Christmas presents, how they curate the Christmas gift itself. They assemble very thoughtful care packs for the workers, and they can then deliver them directly to workers, or they can do it through us. So we do all of these things not because a bottle of Tiger Balm is going to dramatically alter the landscape or the life of a migrant worker, but it does two very important things. The first is, it shows the worker that somewhere out there is an individual or a family who he doesn't know, they don't know his name, but they've taken the time, they've spent the effort to gather this gift, thinking of him and getting it to him. So it shows them that there is this web of support out there, because they don't actually have a social security net here. Secondly, in terms of policy changes, etc., we feel it's very important to showcase that the welfare of the migrant workers is important to the voting population in Singapore. We feel it's important to build those bridges, just so that the needle can shift a little bit in terms of their overall welfare.
Sorry, I had to go on mute just to make sure that there wasn't any sort of sounds coming from my end. But thank you, thanks Deepa, thanks for that. Thanks for painting such a vivid picture, right? For actually quite a large community, isn't it? In Singapore.
Yeah, there's close to a million of them, a million migrant workers, which people don't realize. But yes, there's a lot of them.
Yeah. So thanks for sort of sharing their plight, and obviously being their voice today, and for sharing the work, the good work, and your aspiration of bringing Christmas joy to every one of them this year. Thanks for that. I've noticed that we've got about 3 questions in the chat, in the Q&A section. But I think before we go on to those, maybe because I think our next question, which is directed to both of you, might address some of the questions in the Q&A. So I guess, Catherine and Deepa, you've shared, you've each shared what each of your organization is doing, right, in terms of helping Singaporeans or individuals who live in Singapore to really contribute back and give back. So I guess there was, in that poll, there were a few people in the audience today who want to know how to get started. So I'm throwing it to you, Catherine, if there's someone who's feeling, obviously the desire, the passion, there's that pull towards, doing something meaningful. How can CFS help them take action?
Well, I mean, first of all, I must say, go wow, Deepa, it is so amazing to hear what you're doing. And really, whatever we do in CFS, we are the intermediaries, right? And really part of our job is really to look for people like Dipa, look for people who are really passionate. Because they could be running roundups, or they could be running the charities, or they could be running, different kinds of programs to support, different causes. And I think this is really our job, right? To be able to match our donors, to people who are equally passionate with the ideas. And so it is really about matching demand and the supply. So yeah, back to, your question, like how can we start thinking about it, right? So for the folks out there who are thinking about, hey, I want to do good, I want to leave a legacy gift. The first thing I would say is that, well, first of all, you can always give now. You don't have to think about legacy gift as a something that you will do when you're 80 or 90 years old. But yeah, you could start doing now. You could be volunteering, or you could be donating small sums of money. It is really about understanding for what is it that that matters most to you. And if one advice that I would give would be to discuss with your family and your loved ones, because making a legacy gift is not something that you have to choose between either leaving something behind for my family or leaving something for a charity. It can be done, it's not mutually exclusive. You can do both. So it is really about, talking to your family members, talking to your loved ones, sharing with them your views, hey, dad and mom, we are planning to, support our favorite causes, in the years to come. So, are you okay? If we were to do this, if we were to establish a scholarship, for a school, or if we were to be supporting, migrant workers, through a fund, and have that discussion with your family members, because when the time comes, you don't want them to be surprised by, your decision. And of course, it would be good to actually talk to your financial advisor, the folks at Prudential, for example. They would be able to give ideas as to how you should be structuring your giving. Maybe, you could be invested in in some investment funds, and the income could be given, to support your favorite causes, or, it could be, payouts of an insurance, or it could even be like your CPF nominations. So there are many different ways to give, or even non-cash, it could be housing. We talk to a lot of the donors about that, right? If they have a large gift, a large asset like a house, and they do not want to just give it all at once to one charity, or they may want to split it up, and give it to a few different charities over a period of time, because it is a rather large asset, then, it is always best, to talk to your legal, your financial advisors, or, or even consult philanthropy consultants like us, just to get an idea, because very often people probably have done it before, and then we are just here, to share, what are some of the things that you can consider and you can think about. And lastly, I would say it is never too early to start planning. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Catherine. Some really good pieces of advice there, and I'm sure I was taking notes, definitely taking notes of what to do next, because I think we all have got good intentions, isn't it? And it's this time of year as well, as we wrap up this year and we look forward to next year, and we always want to go, what can I do more? How can I contribute more? How can I give back more? Right? How can I pay it forward? And I think but life gets busy, work gets busy. And then there's always that whole intent and action, isn't it? So thanks for giving us some good pointers. I like the give now, don't wait. That really stuck in my mind. So thanks for that, Catherine. Dipa, from your perspective, if someone wanted to, give their time, and how best should they navigate the 2,000 over charities that we have in Singapore?
Well, hopefully there'll be 2001 and they can pick the newbie on the block very soon.
I will let you have your plug.
Yeah, no, but we will, groups like us, I mean, I can't speak for others, but I can speak for It's Raining Raincoats. As I said, we've been running with zero overheads all this time, and we faced a lot of burnout, I have to say, over the course of last year and this year. It's been really, a lot of us also have day jobs, we have families, we have our own personal crises to navigate, and then we do this on the side, right? And we don't have any paid staff, etc. But once we become a charity, I realized that, you have to water the well to be able to draw from it. And we will need some support ourselves to at least have somebody to do the paperwork and so on and so forth. So, at some point, we will be needing, donor support. So yes, I will make a plug for that, because I fear, honestly, what keeps me awake at night is that groups like us might just burn out and die out if we don't have that support. We can't, our model all along has been to run on zero overheads, but if we have to continue to do that, I really don't see how we can sustain it, in the long run, let alone grow. We will need some space, we will need some staff to do, routine things. We might need a budget for sort of marketing, a law firm, to pay legal fees, to pay an accountant to do our accounts. We have not, we have some pro bono support, but you can't continue forever on pro bono support. So I think it's important for groups like us that we get the support we need in order to do what we do, because otherwise I just feel, the emotional load on us is so severe as well, because everything I was telling you about the migrant workers, we internalize a lot of their difficulties when they come to us, a grown man with a toothache crying on the end of the phone. And, if you're then going out for dinner and having a cocktail in your hand, it kind of plays with your mind, right? You're living a parallel existence. You're living their reality, and you then somehow have to live your life as well. Otherwise, people are going to think you're some kind of a, recluse. So you can't let that happen. So living these parallel realities is very emotionally draining. And then to just have the load of, I'm doing this for It's Raining Raincoats, then I have a day job, then I've got my volunteers to attend to. It all gets to be a lot. So I think, when people donate money, it's so important, I guess, for the donors to know the huge impact it has on the charity's end, right? I mean, the amount of the shot in the arm it gives, it's basically your ticket to existence and growth. So it's sometimes easy to just talk big numbers and just talk about charities and groups doing good work in a non-personal context, but as somebody who could be a potential recipient of it, I can just say that, these donations really, could make the difference between existing or not for groups, that are on the deserving end, and for causes, right? Because oftentimes the victims themselves, I shouldn't use that word victims, the beneficiaries, the people who are the actual beneficiaries, in our case, migrant workers, but I'm also very passionate about animals, for example. They can't speak for themselves. They can't make a case for themselves. They can't come and run a beauty parade in front of the donors to say, hey, pick me. So it's ultimately the charities, who are the vehicle. And, so I, on behalf of, well, speaking for myself anyway, and the team at It's Raining Raincoats, I can just say that, these donations and groups like, what the Community Foundation does by providing enabling services to make it easy for donors, I think that's just brilliant, because it takes a village. It takes so many different participants. It takes the donor, it takes the enabler, then it takes the charity before the ultimate beneficiary sees the end result. So I think that whole chain is so important. We play a part in it, but I'm very grateful to everybody else who plays a part in it as well, because otherwise we couldn't do what we do.
Thanks, Deepa. Thank you so much for that. And we'll just do one more poll and we'll head straight into Q&A. So we've got a second poll for you to, and that also actually came through the questions, one of the questions as well, in sort of in a similar manner. So if you can just quickly let us know whether you've considered using your insurance policy, nominating a charity as, you know, as a beneficiary. So just let us know, yes or no. And Catherine and Deepa will, you know, while we get the poll going on that one. Right. So, okay. So it's actually nearly, so slightly more than half have considered that. So, which is great. And obviously, you know, sort of 47% no. So we'll get straight into the question and answers because I think there's we've had now more questions come through. So firstly, I think, Catherine, that goes to you around, first question is someone wants to know, do I need a will to ensure that my CPF or insurance payout goes to my charity of choice? Or will the CPF nomination and insurance beneficiary nomination suffice?
I'm not sure if I could answer that question. It is always good to have a will, I must say. I mean, at the end of the day, unless you're really, you know, you have no other next of kin, it is always good to have a will to be able, so that the people understand your wishes. I think that is important. I can't really comment about whether a will is really necessary. You know, if you have already made an insurance nomination, I probably have to ask the Prudential, you know, consultants to answer that question. But I would say that, you know, having a will is important. Maybe leaving a pledge behind, you know, in CFS, we do have this service where we allow donors, you know, to pledge something, or, you know, consider having a donor advice fund where, you know, you could tell us your wishes in advance, and then, you know, we could work with your family members, you know, and really, we want to work with you right now, right? Rather than working, you know, with your family members in the future. Because I think the whole point is really, you know, legacy is really not about the future. It is really about, you know, yeah, sharing your values, you know, be it kindness, you know, love, compassion, you know, yeah, with the others right now, not you know, 50, 30 years down the road.
Yeah, I think that's really well put as well, Catherine. And we found out, you know, from Prudential as well that, you know, our clients sometimes have this need, and we do encourage them to start to look at, you know, whether it's, you know, whether it's their will or whether it's a trust that they want to set up, just to make sure that their intent is clearly communicated, and obviously to have that conversation with their families as well when this is being done. Another question for you, Catherine, actually it's two in one that I'll combine. There was a question around whether you restrict your service to only IPCs, and then the secondary question was, you know, there are 2,000 charities in Singapore, but I think you had mentioned that CFS supports 400. So how do you decide, you know, where do you lend your support? I think that was the question, like who do you support and who do you work with?
Okay, first of all, we do not just support IPCs. So I mentioned that when a donor establishes a fund, the donation that comes in may be eligible for tax deduction. So if the donor requests for a tax deduction at the point in time of the donation, then the money in the fund can only be onward dispersed to an IPC. So if the donor has the intention of supporting non-IPCs, then, you know, the donor can just not request for a tax deduction at the point, you know, when they donate the money, and then the money is actually free to be dispersed to non-IPCs as well. The other question about, you know, why do we just work with 400 odd charities? Well, we do have a strict due diligence process, you know, that we do on behalf of our donors, right? So at the very least, we want to ensure that the charity is really, you know, a bona fide real charity, you know, it is at least financially sound, and it is doing, you know, what it is supposed to be doing. and it is really doing good work. So what do we mean by it is doing good work, right? Is there a benchmark? So over the years, my team, and also working with the other agencies, we know who are the ones that are doing impactful work. There's evidence-based research to show that certain types of programs really do well, right? And then we comb through the annual reports of these charities. We look at the reports on the particular programs. And I guess, because we look at so many charities, we can at least, do a rough comparison, right? Maybe charity A can feed, 5 children, with $10. But charity B, supports 1 child with $10. But does it mean that charity A is more efficient? Maybe not, because what they are doing could just be very superficial. Whereas another charity spends $10 on a child, but the level of care is so much higher. And as what Dipa has mentioned, right? I mean, the charities are run by humans as well, and they do need to eat and they do need to live. And we will also recommend to our donors, don't just say that I want all my money to just go to the end beneficiary, because whatever programs, that's being run by a charity, there has got to be a human being behind it to actually run the program. So, it could be a physiotherapist, it could be a counselor, or it could just be like a center manager, right? That manages the center so that the children can come in, for their tuition or whatever support that they need. And like Dipa's case, So
thanks, thanks, Catherine. I'm just sort of mindful of time. I got the whole wind up sort of note as well. And we've got a couple of questions which I really want to address, but at the same time, maybe do a wrap up. So I'm going to do like a 2-in-1. So let's see whether we can do this. We've got 4 minutes on the clock. So the challenge is on for both of you. So the 2 questions are, we've got actually 2 individuals that want to do something with both of you, like immediately, right? One was very impressed and inspired, Dipa, with your story, and therefore wants to know how can he or she help you, so it's a good pitch for you there. And Catherine, I think there was one as well that she works, I think Frances works for a charity, and she wants to see how she can partner with CFS with the work that you do. So, right, here's the advertisement time.
So maybe I'll just go first and I'll be very quick. So I'm, Dipa Swamniathan, and I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. So rather than get into, I can't possibly in 3 minutes sort of, give a whole lowdown. And, I'm sure that's a lengthy conversation. So anybody who wants to reach out, I'd be very happy to hear from them. Or, through the organizers, you can get my email address. I'm very happy for it to be given out. So please get in touch. I would be so honored to hear from you, and I'd be very happy to share whatever information I'm able to share with you. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Dipa. Catherine, over to you.
I would do the same, please do check out our website, cf.org.sg, if you'd like to learn more. And to answer Francis' question, if you check out our website, there is a section on grants, and that is where, we work with our charities and we review their grant proposals. So, please do check out for our website. And for those who are interested in the legacy giving, there is a legacygiving.sg website as well, where there's a lot of resources, for you to start thinking about legacy gifts.
Thank you so much. Both of you did so well with that last minute plug. But thank you so much, Catherine and Dipa, for sharing, 2 very unique ways of helping, those that deserve our care and help, in Singapore. So thank you for your time and thank you for sharing your experience with us. I know I've been fully enriched by this time with you and very much inspired to do a lot more. So I know we're not in a physical audience, but virtual round of applause to our 2 very special panelists today. Over to you, David.
Oh, thank you so much indeed. Sorry, I'm just waiting for my video to play catch up with everything else. Look, usually we have sort of quite a formal sort of close to events like this. We really do, but I don't think that's appropriate actually, because Angeline, what you've taken us through this afternoon was truly inspirational. So thank you for expertly moderating the session. And you know, I've been scribbling so many notes down. Catherine, some really brilliant advice, and I couldn't agree with Angeline more around give now, don't wait. I think that's absolutely amazing. But Dipa, particularly with the programme as we edge towards Deepavali this week, I think there's probably going to be a number of us on the call today who are wanting to give up some more of our time. I think that was absolutely inspirational and something that's really, really important. So thank you so much, Angeline. Thank you so much, Catherine and Dipa as well. What a really, really excellent session we have. I think, you know, if you do want to contact any of the speakers, the contact address for Sabina in the team at the Chamber is on the screen for you today. Please do reach out. We'll be very happy to connect. And I think definitely I'd love to get the three of you on a podcast through the Chamber as well and see if we can help amplify some of the amazing things we've discussed today as well. So I know this has been recorded and we'll look to make sure that everybody can see that as well. But what a really brilliant session. Thank you so much. Just really quickly before we say goodbye, we have some couple of events coming up, and no Formula One this year in Singapore, but we have got the Fox Sports presenters, all three of them, including Matthew Marsh as well, who will be joining us on the 9th, so you can ask all your Formula One related questions. It's COP this week as well in Glasgow in the UK, all things sustainability and the environment, so please do check into some really key discussions that are happening there internationally, even though it's being held in the UK. We've got an autumn budget event coming up as well, looking at what the UK is doing in terms of their autumn budget. And we've also, with the UK being announced as an ASEAN Dialogue partner, we have a really engaging session with the British High Commissioner to Singapore and the Ambassador UK mission to ASEAN as well on how you can navigate what that actually means for business, what that means for us. So just really finally, thank you so much for joining us today. We will send an event feedback form through to you, and that will land in your inboxes. So if you could fill that out, that would be great, because we always like to hear how you felt those events went, so that we can help shape better events for you in the future. And all the best, and have a great rest of the week.